All right, all right, all right, all right. How is everyone? How are our heart surfers today? So, this is a podcast. Welcome, welcome. For those who haven't joined us before, this is a podcast, a YouTube podcast, and we address our emotional drama and identify what we bring to our relationships. We believe healing starts within ourselves first. Hence, the name of our program, Healing Me Before We. We bring to you this unique way of uncovering limiting beliefs about relationships by examining the common uses of cliches. My name is Sharon the Heart Lady, relationship specialist, and this is your co-host, Dan, the Radical Healing Man. And we're so excited to share our views. So, Dan, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing great, Sharon, and I hope all the heart surfers out there are doing well as we get more and more now into the fall season. And what a beautiful season it is. I had the opportunity, I live up in the Northeast, to go on what I call, are you ready for this one? Tongue twister? A full fall foliage tour
A
over
full
the weekend.
fall foliage tour. So that you just have to look at the
Yeah,
changing colors of the leaves.
there you go. Yeah, to put it more simply, yes, just to admire the beauty of nature and the art
Absolutely.
of nature and the way that the leaves are just transforming,
Yeah.
right? Beautiful colors.
Yes, absolutely. We love to see I personally love to see the change in the colors from the reds to the yellows to the oranges to the dark browns. I love it, love it, love it. You know what we didn't do? We did not play our
Our
intro.
music.
So we're
I
gonna play it right
know.
now. How about
Let's
that?
go. Let's get into it because I'm ready for some. It's sunlight or moonlight now and coconuts in our time frame that we're doing it here. Just get into the beat and create your own coconuts. Reminds me of Monty Python and the smashing of the coconuts where they're off
So,
marching.
so for those of you who are detail oriented, you might see in my background that it looks dark because it is dark. And we're playing sunlights on coconut. So, but wherever we are is always sunshine for us. So,
It's
so
true.
Dan, what is the cliche for this week?
Well, our cliche is, do we marry our parents? So it's really more of a question, isn't it? And what a powerful question that is, because I was sharing with you before this podcast session began that I believe that most of what we do in our lives is not really at a level of our own awareness and consciousness. That most of what we do is beneath the surface, and that we're not even aware of how we're driven in our own choices, including our choices for a significant other or a mate or a partner in life.
Right. So, yeah, I think there are different schools of thought for that. I know that some say that in our early development as beings on Earth, that we found our mates, uh, or men would be attracted to women that they felt like would be able to bear healthy children, and
I've heard
women
that
would
one.
be attracted to a mate who they felt like they would feel safe and provide for. And then when we fast track hundreds or thousands of years, we started to marry people who also could help us to be financially
Mhm.
stable. And then there are those that, have a biblical reference that we
Mhm.
are to be together, right, in order to continue the legacy of our families. And so it is interesting. Now, as you were saying, subconsciously, I believe that there is emotional DNA. And then subconsciously, we are marrying or being with someone that we are, as we said before, that is familiar to us. But then it could be also someone that we're attracted to because we want the exact opposite of our
Mhm.
parents
That's
as well. but we somehow find some kind of resemblance, even though it's opposite. It is all about, our learned behavior, our shared values that have been taught by our caregivers. So those also play a lot
Oh,
in how we select. I remember I overheard my husband tell someone, well, if you want to see what your woman is going to look like when she gets older, just take a look at her mother. So, that's how another food for thought.
Well, what you just said, I agree with as far as like the gene aspect and the continuation of the genes, altruism, reciprocity, all of that stuff, and what motivates people. And most of that, though, once again, is not a level of consciousness.
Yeah.
It's beneath the surface. Now, I also agree with you that we sometimes do purposefully seek out a mate who is very different from our own parent, whether it's our mother or father, because we just didn't like the relationship that we had with them. And then I also believe that sometimes we seek out someone to sort of address that broken relationship with our parent to find some form of healing or connection in this new relationship that we're developing now with our partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, there's a famous relationship guru called John Gottman, and he says that we are attracted to our partners through, it could either be hormonal or imprinting, right? And imprinting is the influence that we get from our caregiver as young as 18 months, and then to me, even younger, because there have been research that if a child hasn't been picked up or nurtured, even when they're just born, there are different attachment styles. And I think I like to talk about attachment styles too. It's a long, in-depth. With my couples, I do attachment style assessments so that they could get a clearer understanding on where they are and why does this one like that and that one likes that. But there are 4 different types of attachment styles, and I think that we probably could go through one of each of them on different weeks. Attachment styles. So you have what? The security,
Yes.
security, insecurity, right? You have
Yes.
avoidance. What else do you have?
That's always the risk when you get into naming 4 different things,
4
right?
different, right?
And so what I would like to say is, as much as it's attachment, it's also a detachment, right? And so there's a detachment from our parents in a brokenness in our relationship, and we're seeking some type of connection through our mate to have that sense of, we talked about this previously in a podcast, I'm not enough, right? I'm not enough. And so I may seek out a partner who completes me. Go back to that whole idea of the soulmate, right?
Right.
It's another example of I'm not enough unless I find that soulmate who will complete me. And for some people, that works. And I say, celebrate it.
That's right.
And I don't know how often that works, because I think for most of us, we recognize, and that's why it's the name of our podcast, is that when we seek someone else out to complete us or to heal us, we're going from the outside in.
Right.
When we talk about healing, we talk about inside out.
That's right.
And so why it's so important is to know not every reason why we selected our mate or our partner, to have a greater sense of awareness, though, of why we are choosing this person. And there's no right or wrong as far as that goes.
I love that, Dan. Of course, we when we're looking for a partner, that partner is usually a complement. If it's not familiarity, we know that those that have come from an abusive household often fall into that familiarity, not that they consciously, but as you said, subconsciously fall into what's familiar and are attracted to someone who takes control or is abusive, if not physically, then emotionally, if not emotionally, then financially, right? And so we may be attracted to that. On the other hand, we may be attracted to someone who really makes us feel safe and secure because we may have felt abandoned or not have enough nurturing, or we may have been adopted. So there's a sense of belonging, and that individual may feel that void. And again, it's all about the healing. Once we like to talk about this, so people can recognize what stage they're in, so that they can begin that healing and understand, oh, I always pick this type of partner. Why? And then when you come to coaches like Dan and myself, we help you uncover the why, peel back the onion, and let you really see the layers that may have helped you, that may make you, that may contribute you to making the same type of decisions. And so marrying your parent is a possibility. Same personality and different face.
Well,
Yeah.
I really like what you said, because it's so important that we be honest with ourselves first, right? About whatever our attraction is to someone. And as we said already, there could be so many reasons why we're attracted to someone.
Right.
And I'm not saying it in a negative, because maybe there's some attributes that we really find very favorable in our parents that we would want in our mate as well.
Glad you brought up that point.
We see how well that worked for our parents, and we're like, hey,
that's
if it worked well for them, I can certainly see it working well for me. And so we do want to have, in many ways, that favorable relationship that our parents modeled, right? There's that word. They modeled for us in wonderful ways, and we want to imitate their modeling in certain situations. Now, in other situations of abuse or neglect, like you're saying, that's why there's no such thing as first generation abuse. It's passed on from the generation to the next generation to the next, not because they want to pass it on, because that's what the child observes and sees as normal, as normal behavior, because it was acceptable enough that the parents, whether they remained together or not, the consequences weren't as severe as maybe they could have been. And so it becomes a norm, right? So when we often say we are creatures of habit, it is true. Because our habits are learned from our first teachers, our parents. And so whether they taught us in positive ways and in favorable ways or in negative ways, it's important that we know what we're getting into when we're in a relationship with another person, and what our motives are for being in that relationship. And you know what? Some people might say, once again, well, that sounds kind of selfish. And I would say, that's okay. It's okay to put yourself in a relationship with someone that compliments you or gives you the kinds of things that you want to have in another person. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's part of self-care, right?
That's right.
Self-care. And yeah, I agree with you. And just really understanding what it is that you want. It all, for me, it always goes back to having relationship values. And as you said, a lot of times, or all the time, parents, the caregivers, are the ones that model and set the example. So I recently had a client earlier this week, and I told her that if you and your partner are arguing in front of the children, then the children need to see you make up. So,
well, I think they need to see both.
To argue in front of the child. However, if you do, they need to see the makeup, because that creates the balance. So people forget that, and they may make up in their private quarters, or they may have a couple of silent days, and then all of a sudden they see them talking, but it doesn't compute. They were angry. Are they still angry? And so it's even healthy for you to make sure, you as the couple, to make sure that you set an intention to get to the understanding and make up in front of the children, whether it's a kiss on the cheek, I'm sorry, or whatever it may call for that is age appropriate. The child needs to see both ends.
Well, getting back to, let's say a woman marries her father figure and her husband, right?
Mhm,
And I know because I knew my wife's father very well. And
mm,
I know that he and I are very different in one way. Like he's very hands-on. He can take things and he's a tinker, right? He could take things that he would find on the street and he'd be able to fix them and repair them
mm,
and make them work.
mm.
And my wife knows I'm nothing like that. I'm go to the store and buy a new one kind
Or
of
hire
guy.
somebody to do it.
Yeah.
You and my husband have something in common.
And so what I'm saying is, right, sometimes we can set ourselves up because we want our mate or partner to be like our parent and they're not. And
Mm,
so sometimes we get disappointed, right? Go
yeah,
back to that term that you and I use all the time, those unmet expectations. Well, I thought you were going to be like that. I thought that's what my father did. So that's what I expect you to do as well.
yeah,
And often that's not the case.
yeah. And the same thing goes with the male on depending on how the mother or the caregiver, because a lot of times it is a grandparent too. So however the mother or the caregiver nurtured the son is how often they look for that in a woman, right? Or and
That's true.
so that's or another partner, but heterosexually, the male does look for something that someone that is similar. That oh, you got to
Mhm.
know how to cook because my mother cooked every and you got to be able to do this because my mother did that for my father, and that runs really really close. I think for women, they just want to know that they really have a good provider, um, and feel secured and feel special. Because if they're daddy's little girl, they want to feel special.
Mm.
Right? And so it's a really interesting dynamic, when we talk about did you marry a parent? So we'd love to hear from you, Heart Surfers. Did you marry your parent? Same personality, different face, same type of behavior, but different physical body. It's interesting. So I heard you say about your father-in-law, and I have to think about this myself, Heart Surface, because I'm not sure if I've married my father. I'm not sure about the qualities and no, I don't think I married my father. No, I think that there are similar qualities, yes. But and many of you may say, well, I never even thought about my parent when I met this dude, but now I'm giving you food for thought. Let's do some reflection here. What really attracted you? So that's all we're bringing to you as food for thought. We'd love to hear your comments on what you have to say. What about you, Dan? You said did you marry your mother?
Well, I know that I did not marry my mother because my relationship with my mother was broken very early in my life. And I married a woman who was an extreme giver. And
Mm,
my mother was really an extreme taker. So
mm,
I almost went out of my way to marry someone very different from my mother. And I'm glad of it because I have a wife who is very generous, who is very caring, very loving,
mm,
and often, and this is the rub, she puts others before herself.
mm,
And me coming from the environment and background that I come from,
mhm.
more of a survivor initially in my life,
Yeah.
I tend to put myself before others.
Mm,
And that's where there's an opportunity for us to contradict or complement each other.
yeah.
And both of those can happen in our relationship
Yeah.
because we're two very different people.
Mm,
And that's why, when I've spoken before about how I believe takers are attracted to givers and givers are attracted to takers,
yeah.
there's some similarity here
Of
in
course.
terms of how we choose mates and maybe we choose someone that's like our mother in the way that she's giving and generous, or we choose someone who's different because our parent was a taker and we want to give her.
Right. Yeah. So we are attracted to what we did not have
Hmm.
and what we did have. So it's really both, right?
Yes.
What you did not have, you were attracted to someone who was more of a giver because that's really what you wanted for yourself. So you're looking out, your antennas are up for that.
Mhm.
And so you're looking for that. And then again, I bet you there are, when we think about it, some similarities.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so that is it for us to be today, tonight, depending on whatever time you're watching this. Again, we would love to get your feedback. Get your feedback.
Well, and one of I know you're going to get to a quote, and something that just came for me is,
Yeah.
did you ever hear this one? Be careful what you ask for, you might just get it.
Hello.
And and
Oh,
that
so true.
includes sometimes what you're looking for in a mate or a partner,
Yeah.
and you think that they're going to give you something that's going to help you sort of branch or heal a relationship with someone else, including a parent, and they turn out to be a gift in a way that you didn't expect.
Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think this is a real interesting topic, and I'd love to even explore, as you said, talking about attachment styles. I will be giving a workshop on attachment styles. As a matter of fact, Dan, I am doing a workshop this Saturday um, called Arguments and Apologies. So
Mm.
there are, just as though there is a love language, there is an apology language, and there are ways that we accept apologies, and there is also the way you argue. There are particular styles on how you argue. So I'll be doing
And
that.
where do you think we learned those styles from?
I wonder where.
They
So,
didn't just come from the stars, right?
that's right.
These, once again, are learned behaviors and patterns that we got, for better or for worse, from our parents
Yes, yes.
in the modeling that they set for us. And so, once again, we're talking about, hey, there's lots of positive things we might have gotten from our parents, and they modeled many positive things. And then there may be some things that we would rather not have learned, or that we would have rather that would have been different. And so we seek out a partner where we can have those differences as well as those similarities that we found favorable.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? What do we give our focus and energy to? To the favorable things, or to the things where the person doesn't meet our expectations in that manner?
And the truth be told, as you said earlier, Dan, that it is very subconscious. We live 5% or so in our conscious level, 3 to 5, and then the rest is subconscious habits. And so it's important. And so marriage is a relationship role model for your children or for children or for others
Yes.
that you're around. And so, I think it's really important that we keep that in mind, because I've even seen, and I'm sure you've heard too, Dan, that people know that when you've been in a long-term relationship, all of a sudden you become a role model. You didn't ask for it, but they was like, oh, we want to be as long lasting and as loving as you all are. So it doesn't matter whether you have children or not, if you're setting a good example. And that's because each of us have been able to self-develop, love personal development, and love growing together. And so that's what I have for this cliche. Did you marry your parents? All right, Dad.
All right.
Oh, so since I didn't play it at the beginning, I'm gonna make sure that I play it at the end. Our
Okay. I'm still getting used to dancing without my chair twirling around. It's a different dance altogether.
hilarious. All right, folks. We look forward to seeing you again, hearing from you, and we never know what we're gonna talk about. That's why we don't set it up. So you just need to tune in. All right. We're not sure. Subscribe. Do what they say to do because we never know what we're gonna talk about. Sometimes it doesn't come until that very evening. I know we should be better prepared. We're working on it. Have a good
Okay.
one, folks. Have a
All right. Surf's up.